Can you describe your relationship with that family over the years?
So with Ruby and the Frankies specifically, it's just acquaintances. I mostly knew the greater family with the siblings and the in-laws and that whole culture because they all work together and click together like as a whole unit as Mormon family vloggers.
And again, that was in the state of Utah, correct?
Yeah, so when we started to do family vlogging ourselves, we met them at YouTube conventions. And then when we moved down to Southern Utah, several of Ruby's family came down, collaborated with us, and one of them even moved down. And that's when we got to know them a lot better and started going to meet them and see them behind the scenes at private parties and see what they're really like.
Right now, a couple of child abuse charges against Ruby and her business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt. What do you make of those charges?
Honestly, it doesn't surprise me. While I wasn't aware of any overt abuse allegations like that are coming out now about Ruby. I think that a lot of people remember going back 4 or 5 years ago that it was Bonnie who was in the middle of a lot of attention and even had to go to YouTube headquarters and tried to explain herself because a lot of her YouTube content showed her children having bloody noses and split lips, getting stitches and broken arms and fingers and going to the hospital frequently as though it was a form of clickbait to try and get views to their content. And it created an entire division on YouTube where ultimately they had to split from YouTube Kids to YouTube for Adults. And it affected a lot of content creators and should have stopped this. But apparently what you see on camera is not what you always have going on behind the scenes.
Hoping that keeping them home from school and wiping the floorboards would really bring pain.
I'm Jodi Hildebrandt, and I'm Ruby Franke.
Jodi was a marriage counselor who also treated sex addiction through her work with the counseling network LifeStar. She joined forces with Ruby Franke on a life coaching business called Connections.
All of us want connection. We want to have relationships where we feel close and where there's love.
After that 911 call, Ruby's 12-year-old son and her 10-year-old daughter were taken to the hospital. Some who knew Jodi Hildebrandt have been raising concerns for years.
We knew that Jodi does this. We knew 14, almost 15 years ago that she's already done this to me. And people saw and people witnessed and did nothing. She made me sleep outside in the snow. She duct taped me. I wasn't allowed to speak to anyone.
What, in theory, was the justification for the duct tape?
The duct tape was, in her words, an external reminder to me that I'm a liar and that every word that comes out of my mouth is a lie. I understand why the public is focusing on Ruby. It's Ruby's children. But all of these theories and these modalities and these parenting ideas, that all comes from Jodi. That is 100% the therapeutic ideas of Jodi Hildebrandt.
Did you ever imagine a day where you would be free and Jodi would be in prison?
No, it still feels so surreal.
Jodi Hildebrandt has been one of the top recommended therapists by the Mormon Church in Utah for at least 15 to 20 years.
The duct tape was, in her words, an external reminder to me that I'm a liar and that every word that comes out of my mouth is a lie. And I have to, it is now or it is never. And I grabbed that jacket and I literally just started running.
People who watched 8 Passengers were the ones to first kind of ring the alarm as to this alleged abuse that we're seeing now.
When does the way a parent parents go from cringeworthy to child abuse?
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October.
The viewers of 8 Passengers over the past 2 or 3 years became more and more disturbed and started turning Ruby and Kevin into Child Protective Services in Utah.
In 2020, a Change.org petition requesting that CPS check on the children received hundreds of signatures. Impact has obtained records showing police responded to the Franke home more than a dozen times over the past few years, including several reports of juvenile problems in 2018 and 2019, and multiple welfare checks in 2022.
And to the point where they felt like it was a necessity to go talk to the family, at least to the children, to find out if there was any merit to any of the allegations.
But police who investigated the case were unable to speak to the children and filed a request for a warrant to enter the home.
Even though it was submitted to the judge, the warrant was not signed and it wasn't granted. And so there wasn't much they could do at that point.
They were just being harassed by people online, calling the authorities and having to come to their home. It was just a difference in parenting style.
It's 100% Jodi. And I understand why the public is focusing on Ruby. It's Ruby's children. But all of these theories and these modalities and these parenting ideas, that all comes from Jodi.
Impact reached out to both Ruby and Jodi's attorneys. Ruby's declined to comment. We have yet to hear back from Jodi's.
Just one count of aggravated child abuse is up to 15 years in jail. At the same time, they can say, you know what, we found out you abused them 6 different times. You could really get to a high number here.
Ruby's 4 minor kids are in the state's custody, but their father, Kevin, seen here in these DailyMail.com photos, is trying to win them back. For Jesse, healing and moving on has been a long and winding journey.
I was incredibly unstable in my early 20s. I thought that I was evil. I thought that I was this unlovable creature from hell. You did not win. And you do not own my life. You have no power.
To elaborate on that, what Ruby did we see on camera versus the Ruby that maybe you saw when the camera wasn't rolling?
I think that out in public and socially, unless you see them in a personal situation, like at a party or when they feel like they can let their guard down, what you're seeing on camera is a totally different person and a totally different life. There's an agenda to try and portray themselves as upstanding Mormons and to have that persona, and they feel like it's fulfilling who they are and their purpose in life and everything. And so I think that creates a pressure cooker situation where they're willing to live a double life and hide a lot of generational family secrets. And we see that with Ruby, coming out right when she gets caught with all of this and accused, blaming her kids and throwing them under the bus for the abuse, instead of realizing who the adult parents are in the situation that are supposed to be home all day 24/7 as family vloggers supervising all of this.
PE class over at the middle school. And for PE, this teacher is doing dance. The teacher is going to have all of the students in her class, which includes Julie, do a TikTok dance. And I said, a TikTok dance? What are the dance moves? And she's like, well, in the real dance, they're kind of naughty, but she said just to do something different there. And I said, what do you mean? She says, well, some of the girls still twerk. She told me one of the songs. And I looked it up to look up the lyrics. It is straight up hardcore. Straight up. And I was reading the lyrics quietly to myself as I was scrolling. I just typed in the name of the song and I said lyrics of, all lustful, it's all suggestive, it's all seductive, it's all perverse. Nowhere in here was the school or the teacher being protective of these children's innocence. No one was trying to look out for what was best for these kids. This teacher is being very selfish because she wants to be hip, up to date, cool, doing TikTok, entertaining the school. She wants to be liked by the teens. These are 12 and 13-year-old girls. She is taking from them. It's very selfish. And so I'm going to be going into the school. And I don't have an appointment. I just found out about this yesterday. So I'll sit in. You are not protecting them. You are introducing them to the world. And you're saying it's okay. You're saying that you support this. I didn't cry in there. I was very strong and sour, but now I am crying. And I said, in the end, you're not going to answer to those 30 parents who think this is a good idea. And you're not going to answer to me who is telling you this is wrong. I said, you will answer for what you brought into this school and exposed these children to. Those girls are going home and they're looking up the rest of the lyrics to these songs you're hooking them into. They're dancing to the song. They've got it in their head and they want to know the rest of it and they're looking it up. You're okay with them looking up the rest of the lyrics to this song? It's explicit. It's disgusting.
You know, I think this is just, one more piece to the puzzle.
Defense attorney Sky Lazaro says these reports from Springville police shed more light on the child abuse case involving Ruby Franke.
It tends to, maybe lend some credibility that there was probably or potentially some problems there.
Franke of YouTube's 8 Passengers fame and her business partner Jodi Hildebrandt were arrested in southern Utah August 31st after police say 2 of Franke's children were found hungry and hurt. That same day, Springville police found 2 of Franke's other children. A police report says they were in American Fork with a woman named Pam Bodcher, who told officers Ruby had called her saying she had a family emergency and asked if her kids could stay with her. The 2 children wanted to stay with Bodcher, police wrote, but were ultimately placed with Ruby's oldest daughter. Meanwhile, police reports also show Ruby's husband, Kevin, reported a burglary at his home, which police told him was just them serving a warrant looking for the kids. Kevin also wanted to file charges against his own daughter, police said, accusing her of stealing when she went into the house to get some items for her siblings. Police said they told Kevin there was no crime committed, but he was unsatisfied and threatened to sue.
Paul, in your mind, where does the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints fall into all of this?
I think that they create a fundamental problem with all of this in the fact that they have a system of looping people back into their own control measures to keep things contained, which is why you don't hear about the tens of thousands of abuse allegations in relation to the Boy Scouts of America, the 500 plus cases that are going on with the church right now, and the 12 new ones just this year. And they don't talk about it because, just like Jodi Hildebrandt, they're funded and the counseling and the therapists are all paid for and billing the church directly. So when Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke are sitting there filming their videos for their connections company, portraying themselves online as upstanding Mormons and examples to families in the community, their children are tied up in the basement and then they're being paid and funded by the church in their billing cycles.
To elaborate on that, what Ruby did we see on camera versus the Ruby that maybe you saw when the camera wasn't rolling?
I think that out in public and socially, unless you see them in a personal situation, like at a party, or when they feel like they can let their guard down, what you're seeing on camera is a totally different person and a totally different life. There's an agenda to try and portray themselves as upstanding Mormons and to have that persona, and they feel like it's fulfilling who they are and their purpose in life and everything. And so I think that creates a pressure cooker situation where they're willing to live a double life and hide a lot of generational family secrets. And we see that with Ruby, coming out right when she gets caught with all of this and accused, blaming her kids and throwing them under the bus for the abuse, instead of realizing who the adult parents are in the situation that are supposed to be home all day 24/7 as family vloggers supervising all of this.
The police find laptops, tablets, cell phones. They find ropes. They find duct tape. They find handcuffs.
Jodi and Ruby were arrested and charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse.
The day after her arrest, we know that her oldest daughter and a DCFS caseworker, along with other family members, went in the home to gather personal items for 4 children, 2 in state custody in southern Utah and 2 in the custody and care of the oldest daughter in northern Utah. The following day, Kevin Franke called Springville police, that is Ruby's husband, to report a burglary at that home. He said the front door had been kicked in and electronic items had been taken. The department said, no, the front door wasn't a burglarized incident. That was us serving your search warrant 2 days prior. It turns out the oldest daughter did have the electronic devices. She brought them to the police department and they were returned to Kevin. Kevin said that he wanted to file charges against his oldest daughter. The police department said, we're not doing that. Kevin then told them, according to this report, they would be hearing from his attorney.
There's no way possible that Ruby Franke's bishop and local church leadership weren't fully aware of what was going on, because that is the culture. You're not even allowed to go to church and participate unless you go do the confessionals and talk through all this. So if what Ruby said was true and this went on for 5 years and spread throughout the family, I find it impossible that the local church leadership wasn't a part of it and didn't help keep it quiet and continue to pay Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke to be representatives.
Didn't know who she was before she met Ruby. We had kind of heard through the grapevine. I think like my Aunt Eileen or somebody brought it up on their family group chat when Ruby and them started connections. We were suspicious of Jodi. We didn't really know anything about like her reputation and kind of her background and things. I still am kind of hoping that the book gets thrown at both of them, especially Jodi, because hearing like some of the things that she had with some of her previous clients about breaking like doctor-patient confidentiality and stuff like that, it's like she shouldn't have a license anymore. And for starting this group with my aunt that is really cultish from the sounds of it, I think she should get put away for a long time. As far as my aunt, I think she definitely needs to do time. I don't know what the future will hold for her, if this was maybe just her being led down the wrong path, but she needs to not be in public anymore. And as sad as I am to say it, I think Kevin should be arrested too. Me and my dad have been having a hard time believing that he had zero contact with his family, that he had no idea that, Ruby would leave them for long stretches of time. Because, he at least had to have stayed in contact with Sherry because he was part of overseeing her, like her car and her student stuff at BYU. And so some of that had to have made its way through. So at the very least, I think he should be brought up on neglect charges, because that's not acceptable.
Again, can you put in the timeline of when you first met Ruby and then when that kind of fizzled away? How long was that or so?
I think from the first time we met at a convention, probably in 2017 or 18, and then fast forward to I blocked everyone on that entire friends group and family around 2019 and was divorced by 2021.
Have you ever had a conversation with Ruby that stuck out to you in any way?
The one conversation that I personally had back and forth with her was very strange, and she was kind of portraying out different beliefs and ideals and trying to give advice about what we should do with our YouTube channel and things like that. And I actually had kind of an awkward disagreement and argument with her at a restaurant over dinner, where I disagreed with her parenting styles and some of the things that she said in the conversation about the church. And I basically defended my reasons for leaving the church and that it wasn't going to hurt my kids.
You ever had any conversations with her husband, and where do you think he fits into all of this?
I never really met him. He was always, whenever they were around, he was either never there or just kind of like hanging out in the background, very quiet.
A woman named Pam Botcher was named along with Ruby Franke as Connections team members. On the day of Jodi and Ruby's arrests, the two outstanding Franke children were found in Pam Botcher's care in American Fork. Coming full circle here, Ruby's niece, Jodi Hildebrandt, told me in an interview almost a month ago that Pam was one of Jodi's friends and was always around the house when Jodi lived in Utah County.
He was Jodi's best friend. She wasn't actually involved, but she was one of the people that was constantly surveilling, the surveillance of reporting back to Jodi, wondering why she's not being, why they're not talking about her.
Mormon Stories podcast has just received today a temporary restraining order requiring us to take down our interview with Adam Paul Steed, the courageous whistleblower to Mormon Church Boy Scout sexual abuse in Idaho, and one of the many victims of 8 Passengers therapist Jodi Hildebrandt. We are not at liberty at this time to publicly discuss the details of the restraining order, unfortunately, so I won't be providing that here. For those who are not yet able to see the Adam Steed interview, in it, he focused on the following. Number one, his story of courageously speaking up as a victim of Mormon church-backed child abuse in the Mormon Church's Idaho Boy Scout program. 2, how Adam and his father fought to successfully change the statute of limitation laws for child sexual abuse victims in Idaho. 3, how Adam and his young family, while at BYU, were referred to therapist Jodi Hildebrandt by their Mormon bishop. And of course, Jodi Hildebrandt is the therapist for the 8 passengers, who's now in jail along with Ruby Franke for, I think, 6 accounts of child abuse. Anyway, Adam and his young family were referred to Jodi Hildebrandt by their Mormon bishop while Adam was at BYU. 4, how by Adam's report, Jodi Hildebrandt destroyed both his personal reputation and his family through various unethical therapeutic practices, including violating his confidentiality by reporting false and or confidential information to the BYU Honor Code office, leading to his suspension from BYU. 5, how Adam fought back against Jodi Hildebrandt by successfully getting Jodi Hildebrandt's license suspended. And finally, 6, Adam's firm belief that the Mormon Church intentionally weaponized Jodi Hildebrandt and her tactics to destroy both Adam's life and his family, in part as a retaliation for Adam's advocacy against a Mormon Church Boy Scout abuse in Idaho as a whistleblower. So, because of the importance of Adam Paulsteed's story, we at Mormon Stories Podcast are heartbroken to have to take his story down, at least temporarily for now.
And I had trauma from what happened to me in the past, and you know, we were just trying to be normal people and live a normal life and start and have a beautiful life after some of the things we've gone through. You know, it's hard for me to talk about this stuff because it's so traumatic. Phase 1, there's phase 2 and phase 3 of the particular group she was in at the point. And phase 1, it wasn't very intense. It was lighthearted and fun. And, you know, think of like a PG movie or something, and a lady that's just charismatic and fun and teaching these principles about delusion, denial, and all this kind of stuff. Codependency, using small examples in people's lives where they didn't realize they were in this state, and the whole room laughing about it. That was phase 1. And it was, you know, couples, all happy couples thinking they were with this incredible lady. You know, when she separated the couples into all women and all men groups, then after she gained everyone's trust, then really bad things began to happen. And I have the emails between my ex-wife and her planning out all this stuff, talking about what the real issues in our marriage were, and then them evolving that into something drastically different with allegations that would totally destroy your life. And how that evolution happened from what they originally were like is just astounding. I had to come forward because when I heard that they were doing the same thing to those little kids that they did to me to hide their crimes, it was totally predictable. And I knew my records would just completely show the world the truth of how dangerous this lady really is. And clients that are close to her that are probably not really good people in the first place, but that she enhances their abilities under her guidance to do incredibly criminal things.
Adam claims that Jodi Hildebrandt conspired with his then wife to accuse him of sexually abusing their child.
I never had the courage to talk about this openly because the damage was so bad. After Jodi and my ex-wife got done trying to make me look like a child abuser and a sexual addict and a rapist and everything else, having been a victim that came forward to change the laws to protect children, and having the insecurities that victims have, the stigma and all that stuff, and Jodi working on me to try to make me look like I was a predator. And these little kids that, you know, that they're accusing of abuse, sexual abuse right now, to hide their crimes. That's just an old MO. Y'all, this is just so hard to talk about.
Is there anything we're really missing, the public is missing about this whole situation?
I just think that people need to not have amnesia and remember the bigger picture, that this all relates back with this family and the siblings at a greater level, clear back when there was a lot of problems going on with YouTube, looking at YouTube content creators that were creating content like this. And while everybody goes back through Ruby's YouTube channel and is trying to comb through and find stuff that has been deleted, Ruby was not the only one that has been doing that over the last 4 or 5 years. Well, first of all, a lot of the people who pretend online that they don't drink and they don't smoke marijuana and they don't do a lot of these other things, they immediately were participating in all of that stuff, which was a surprise to me because at this time, you know, I had already left the Mormon church. And so to me, like, to go to this party, it wasn't like a big deal, but to see this whole family there doing all this. And not only that, I mean, even for just a regular party, not even having them by the standards of Mormonism, because like whatever, people can do whatever they want in their private life. But what occurred was shocking, and there was several witnesses. I'm talking like there was confessions where they were talking about, oh, we get together all the time. They would say they would get together and have hot tub parties as adults, and they would basically as sisters with husbands and trade husbands and spouses and like swinging and swapping and all kinds of things. And it was confessed that they were acting like this was normal, going clear back, like, yeah, all of us sisters did this clear back into our childhood and stuff. There was a naked girl laid out completely on the couch. Her husband was standing there. The husband was standing there with no, listen, this is gross. The husband was standing there with a jar of peanut butter trying to get the family dog to do stuff.
Stop it! In front of people?
Like, in front of the host of the party and everybody.
Oh my God.
Other witnesses, yeah. So I turned and went out, went back to my room back in there. We left.
Oh my God.
I blocked everybody. And because I blocked everybody, that ended up unraveling my whole friends group and everything.
Yeah, you're like.
Ruby wasn't at the was not at that party.
Just her sisters were.
It was there was a whole very famous YouTube Mormon family there, and there was sisters and their husbands all involved.